Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. So good to see you. Happy Friday. We're going to give it, hello. Hi, Kara. We're going to give it just a minute for folks to get settled and signed in. If you want, say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're from. We have quite the showing for today. So, you want to know where everyone's from? Let me tell you, I have my trusty list here. Alaska, Arkansas, Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, nod to Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas. Oh man, Kentucky. I was like, what state is that? I'm just kidding. Maine, Minnesota. Our hearts are with you, Minnesota. Uh, New Jersey, Nebraska, New York, Ohio, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Tennessee, Texas, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and a big hello to my friends in Sweden and our friends in Turks and Caicos. Welcome, everyone. We are so glad to have you here. What a great way to start the new year and talking about how to stay focused when everything around you is changing. I'm really excited to share with you the content that we have for today. We're going to put you to work. So I hope you're ready. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you a link to get the handout for today. You're going to need that. And so I hope you're ready to do some work and to share your thoughts in the chat. So let's dig in. Um, if you don't know about us, we're from ACJI. My name is Alex, and I'm one of three directors here. And ACJI, what we're trying to do here is really help organizations turn good intentions into real impact. We use implementation science, data benchmarks to develop strong leaders, elevate voices, and design cultures where people and results can thrive. That is our whole goal. And we love sharing knowledge and introducing you to super brilliant folks from across the globe that we meet and adore. And one of those is with me today. So I want to introduce you to Dr. Nick Powell. He is a strategic planning guru, one of the best, who's risen through the ranks of human services and criminal justice work and has been actively improving criminal justice outcomes through his strategic planning process and through using data and benchmarks and all sorts of things. He's going to tell you all about it. He is the mind and the brilliance behind the person-centered supervision model. He's a professor in criminology and the guy who makes implementation science feel really doable. At ACJI, Nick leads strategy with clarity, rigor, and results. So we are lucky to have him on our team. He also works in Georgia, and he's also really just genuinely fun to hang out with. Although, if I'm being completely honest, I might love his fiance even more than I adore him. So, this is Dr. Nick Powell. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us. I appreciate it, and I can't wait for you to share all your wisdom with folks.
Thanks for having me, Alex, and for that introduction.
You have to tell Felice that I gave her a little shout out here today. She's
I, sh-
lovely.
I sure will.
So, just a quick heads up to everyone starting in April, Dr. Powell is going to be leading a strategic planning intensive for anyone who wants their plans to come to life. If you want to know how to make a plan, how to tie it to implementation science, how to use data to help you understand if your plan is alive and well and working, this is where you want to go, is the strategic planning intensive. You're going to use implementation science and data and real-time support from Dr. Powell himself and your cohort so that you can put strategic planning to life in your work and in your personal life. You'll walk away with tools that you can use immediately for yourself and your organization. It's going to be an awesome class. So we'll tell you a little bit more about it later, but just know that is new and coming up in April. It's going to be really fun. So here's the handout, everyone. We are going to be working through some things together. We're going to give you a lot to think about and a lot to do in today's session. So you can't just sit back and relax and watch. So if you want to scan the QR code, you can. Diana's also putting in the chat the link if that's easier for you. And it's going to walk you through some of the steps that we're going through today so that you have that with you. You can download it and print it out and share it with people all you want. Okay, so this is where we're going to get started. Now let's get into the good stuff. So, I love a new year. I don't know about you, but I really do. And I love the idea of creating plans and goals and having the year start out fresh and feeling fresh about it. But it can also bring a lot of pressure, at least for me, in trying to think about like, what am I going to do this year and how am I going to put it together? And if you're anything like me, you've probably had a number of New Year's resolutions that have fizzled, faded, and imploded over time. That's been my jam for a long time. And so I want to share, I'm going to start by sharing some strategy with you, something that you can do instead of maybe resolutions that fizzle and fade, some other things to think about in terms of how to start the year fresh. But first, I want to understand, how are you starting 2026? So you're going to see a poll pop up on your screen. Where are you starting 2026 from? Are you energized and ready? Are you hopeful but a little overwhelmed? Focused, but you know what matters? Scattered. There's too much going on. Maybe you're tired and you need a reset. Or maybe you're in transition right now. You're changing jobs or changing rules or changing anything in your life. And it just is like, forget 2026. I'm in the middle of a mix. So thank you, everyone, for putting in your answers. I see them coming in. We've got we've got people all over the place, Nick. So this is really great. I think you're going to find something. All of you will have a chance to find something in what we're talking about here today. All right, I'm going to close this thing so that I can share results with you. Um, you
Can't
should
wait to
be
see
able
that.
to, yeah, here, you should be able to see those results. We've got about 16% of you energized and ready to build, 37% feeling a little overwhelmed, hopeful, but overwhelmed. 17% focused, you know what matters, 14% scattered, 11% tired, and we've got 4% in transition. Dr. Powell, or may I call you Nick? Is that okay? I've been interchanging
I would
it.
prefer Nick. Yeah, Alex. Thanks.
Okay. Well, Nick, what comes to mind for you when you see these results?
I see these results. I think it's a good reminder that everybody's at a different spot.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about strategy, I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about people. Like there's no simple click it and fix it solution. These are we're working in if if our the social service field wasn't unpredictable, unreliable, challenging, we wouldn't need strategy. But the fact is, it is, and we're dealing with people, and people are in different spaces. So it's important to always keep that on our forefront.
Thanks for that refresher. That's so true. You never know where people are at and where they might be coming from. We're just as messy as the fields that we work in. And so it's a nice reminder. I love that. So, as I mentioned, I like to start the year fresh and new and doing all sorts of things. And one of the practices that has helped me over the last few years kind of step back from very specific resolutions that I don't tend to stick with to kind of thinking more broadly about the year as a whole is I like to choose a word for the year. But what matters to me about that isn't necessarily the word. The word's important, but then how I operationalize that word so that I can keep coming back to it throughout the year and say, am I living up to this word that I've set, this theme of sorts that I have set for the year? It helps me to remember who I am, how I want to show up, and what I want the year to be like as everything is maybe falling apart or feeling chaotic around me. And this year has been kind of interesting. It's been different than other years for me. The word came to me really fast. Like I immediately knew what the word for 2026 was going to be for me, and that was big. It came fast. It was clear in my mind. I knew exactly that that was the right word for me, big. But every time I thought about, okay, what does this mean in practice? I felt my energy like draining out of me, which is not a normal experience for me. Usually, the fun for me is figuring out what it means. This time, I would think about the word big and I would want to crawl in my bed and just take a nap. Like it just felt overwhelming. And I realized something as I was thinking about it that traditionally, big has meant more. more fun, more excitement, more stuff, more travel, more work, more blah, whatever, more everything. And honestly, that really doesn't resonate for me right now. I don't want more. And so I was confused for a while about how could my word of the year be so clear, big. That's the year I want to have, but I don't want more. So I really had to spend some time thinking about what does this mean for me? And so I got to work kind of journaling and thinking and talking and doing all sorts of stuff. And I realized that for me right now, it's not about more for me, it's about alignment. For me, big means embodied alignment, really embodying those values that are most important to me, the things that are most important to me. And I came to realize that for me, it's actually the opposite of more in many ways, that embodied alignment or big means saying no to all sorts of things that distract me from being aligned around the things that I enjoy doing and are important to me. So for me this year, big means something very specific. And I would love to hear, do you pick a word for the year? If you do, what is your word? And if you've never done it before, what could a word be that might help you to kind of think through the kind of year that you want to have and what that could look like? And then I want you to try a little exercise, and this is on your handout. You can just do it with me while we're talking, but I'm going to map it out for you with my word. So my word is big. What's your word? For me, big means embodied alignment. And then I think the question that's really important here is if I lived that word in practice, what would people notice about me? And I think what they would notice if I was really being big, meaning being embodied in my alignment, I would be less scattered and more present. That's what I realized it meant for me. Ooh, I'm seeing colossal. That's a cool word. I want to know what that one means. So if you have a word and you want to share it, steadfast, I love it, joy, moment, these are great words. I'd love for you to take it one step further and think about what does it mean for you if that's your word? What does it mean in practice? And then if you lived it, what would people notice about you if you were living into that word this year? Look at all these great words, Nick. What do you think about all of this?
Yeah, I'm seeing some really good ones here. I've seen steadfast come up a couple times. I'm seeing a lot about purpose. I think people
Yeah.
want clarity. It seems like our audience recognizes that vague wishes drift, and that's why I love this idea of picking a word as opposed to a resolution or something. Motivation is unreliable, right? It depends on our mood.
Yes.
Right? It comes and it goes. It shows up one day, shows up another day. But I don't know about you all, but my boss expects me to show up every day, and I think she's on the call right now. So I show up every day. But yeah, motivation waxes and wanes. But when we're talking about our purpose, what we're trying to do, that we should be showing up no matter how we feel. And I think with setting a clear
Mm.
intention like this, there's no better time than to do it at the beginning of a new year. Helps you remind yourself every day why you show up, even on those days where you may be lacking motivation. And showing up is a little
Mm.
bit harder. So when we're talking about wanting to adapt, or we're talking about wanting to reach accomplishment, and I'm repeating some of the words I see here. It's we want to pursue those that purpose, that we want that clarity around that on every day, not just when it feels right.
I mean, I'm being reminded of so many times when my resolutions faltered because life around me got hard. And you're so right that when I was motivated and into it, then I would do it. And when I was having a tough day or things were going wrong, it was really easy to fall apart. And so, what a great example of if you can pick a word that's tied to your identity, if it's a part of who you are and want to be, how even when things get hard, you might stick with it.
And that's right. And this is what I would consider. I'm hearing a couple people say they're having a hard time hearing me. I'll try to speak up. So let me please keep giving us that feedback. Um, but yeah, this is Alex what I would consider to be identity work. And strategic planning is what allows our identity and our purpose to become shared, actionable direction.
Hmm.
And when we can form a collective vision based on all these different unique spaces that we may be coming from, all these different things that we're bringing into the equation of our organization. So before we can lead a team or create a strategy, we have to understand who we are, what's driving us in that moment, what's motivating us, and what purpose we're trying to serve. Because we get into this work answering a call to service. But like we talk about all the time, like the research shows us, but we get so weighed down with bureaucracy and public
Mm.
scrutiny and budget cuts and all these things that pull us away from that call to service we answered. And we quickly start losing our alignment. We start losing our strategic focus. So I know for me, when I first answered the call to service, I got into this work. I became a juvenile probation officer, right? And after spending a couple years doing that and having several heartbreaking examples, such as arguing with a principal to not expel a kid for having his shirt untucked, violating a dress code, right? And I think you may have talked about that story before, Alex. So
Yeah.
arguing with the principal for hours, trying to get him to keep this kid in school, the principal insisting on implementing, one size fits all systematic policies as opposed to trying to come up with a creative strategy to help a kid. We missed out on opportunity. This kid got expelled and rearrested within a matter of
Yeah.
days, right? And so after having several heartbreaking stories like this, I moved to adult probation, where I quickly, on my new caseload, getting to know that, realized that most of the people on my caseload I already knew from working in the community as a juvenile officer. It was parents, it was siblings, it was neighbors. And that's when I kind of had this fundamental realization that there's a lot more going on than just personal choices or character traits in our criminal justice system. It's a series of events and circumstances that shape the individual story of a person's life. So I continued climbing through the ranks, studying sociology, getting more of an understanding of the social context in which crime occurs so that I could use this knowledge to help inform strategies that'll break some of those cycles of violence and trauma that I was seeing in our communities. Now, I like sharing this because that's my why, Alex. It's what
I
motivates
love
me,
it.
and it's very unique to me. But I share it to demonstrate with you and the rest of our audience of the importance of reflecting and understanding who we are and what we stand for. Because only when we understand who we are and what we stand for can we start building organizational goals that we can expand outwards, outside, beyond our circle of influence.
I don't know that I've ever really thought about strategic planning in that way. I always jumped into strategic planning, like, all right, what do we want to do this year? What's going to happen? And so I love that you're suggesting that there's a few steps before that process even begins to not only understand your personal and professional identity in this work, but then creating a collective identity in this process.
That's right. I think of it identity as almost like a prerequisite for strategic planning, right?
Mm,
Because yeah, it's true. People don't follow people. People follow missions and visions. But those missions and visions are created by people. People
yeah.
serving people. We're in public service work. We're in human service work. So it's people trying to help people. So we don't get to ignore that human element. See, I think that we often underestimate the power of identity, but it's what organizes our choices, motivates our actions,
Yeah.
and brings meaning to our professional lives. So only by taking the time to understand who you are and what you stand for can you even start building a strategy that you and your team can coalesce around to improve the overall performance of your agency.
That's really awesome. I love it. And for our Academy alum who are on here, it reminds me of the why triangle, right? Getting really clear about the whys of your organization, of the things that you do in your day to day, and your personal why to kind of come together and help you understand from that base, where do we want to take the organization? And so you have some simple questions that people can ask themselves that are on the handout, and I'm going to share them here to start thinking about who they are and what their identity is. Can these questions be used for both individuals and agencies, teams, organizations?
Absolutely. But before you can start recognizing the importance of other people's professional identities, you have to look inward first.
Yeah.
right? You got to do that. You got to do that work internally. You know, a lot of times we get asked questions like something simple, like who you are, what do you want to do, what are you about, and we give superficial answers. Not because
Hmm.
we're superficial people, but because we haven't devoted the time to engage into some heavyweight thinking about who we are, what we're trying to accomplish. So, yeah, I'd like to ask everybody to be able to answer three questions that I think together form your professional identity. That's who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Mm,
And when you
I
start
love that.
answering those kind of questions, then you can start transitioning into questions bigger than yourself, such as what impact do you want to have?
I love that. So those first three kind of lead into, based on that, what kind of impact do I want to have in my career or in my life?
That's right.
Love that. I'm trying to think about, it's so interesting, just because it's the new year, you're starting fresh. I can't help but look at these questions and think about how did I answer this when I was 18, when I was 25, when I was I'm just old. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but every 5 or 10 years after that, and how important it is to not just do it once, but to revisit this often so that you can use it to help drive the impact that you want to have.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. It's constant work. It's a constant pursuit. Our identity's
Yeah.
changing as our situation changes. Our identity's changing as well. What's important to us now may not be as important to us when we were younger. We didn't understand the importance of it. Things that bothered us when we were younger, we might not really care about now. And that happens all the time. You know, you have kids, you have grandkids, you change positions. Um, your team wins the championship. All these things affect how you look at the world, which in
Yeah.
turn will affect your identity.
That's awesome. So Annette's asking us to repeat identity is, and we've said a lot of that. So I'm wondering, Annette, if you can give us some more about what specifically we were talking about identity, but the part that stuck out to me that you said, Nick, was that strategic planning is what allows identity and purpose to become shared, actionable direction. That is gold. And I just love how you're taking that process that we tend to jump into and really stepping it back. Awesome. Well, I would love to hear from folks in the chat. What part of your identity or purpose feels clearest to you right now? Are there parts that feel blurry? Are there things that need some attention? Do you feel clear and solid? I know there's been parts of my career where I felt a little lost. Like I wasn't sure. I remember when I switched from working with youth to working with adults. I know you did the same, Nick, and I don't know if you felt squishy in that transition. I've also felt some lack of clarity as I've moved positions where I felt like I had really clear idea of who I was and what I was about. And then I became a supervisor or a director, and then it just maybe got diluted or shifted and changed. I'm seeing the impact that I want to have. So I know who I am. I understand my identity. What needs some clarity is what's the real impact that I want to have. And I don't know if this is true for you, Rachel, but it might be true for others who are feeling similarly. Where do I need to be able to have that kind of impact? Or what kinds of things do I need to be doing? Love it. So I think we can kind of wrap this part up in saying that when your identity and purpose are clear, the strategy piece becomes a tool. It's not a document that we're filing away or a list of things we have to share with the legislature. It becomes alive as a tool that we can use to help have the impact that we want. So I want to focus on individuals first with this. We've just come up with hopefully a word or some direction or who we are, and now we can use it to put together kind of a mini plan for ourselves. Does that sound like an okay place to go next, Nick?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
Mhm.
So let me ask you all another question. I'm gonna pull up a poll here. Which best describes your current plan for 2026? Do you have one and you feel good about it? Do you have one that needs work? Do you have one that you're not using? It's early in the year, so that might be for February. Do you have a rough idea, but not a plan? You don't have a plan, or, I'm buried. I'm just trying to survive here today. So I'd love to see where people are at. And maybe while folks are filling this out, Nick, can you tell us a little bit about why plans are important?
Yeah, well, vague wishes drift,
Mhm.
right? And clear goals, clear plans, direct.
Mm,
So we all want stuff, but those vague wishes drift over time as different things come up, right? And like we constantly talk about, Alex. I mean, people in public service. I mean, we always try to be everything to everybody, but that
mm,
is unsustainable. That is an unsustainable strategic position. Something is going to drop, and so by doing this identity work and then transitioning, building on that identity work to start making a plan for yourself, which can transition to a plan for your agency, you give yourself that direction. And without that direction, how are you going to make decisions? How are you going to choose what actions you take? But with that direction, you can start focusing on the things that matter and, more importantly, ignoring the things that don't. But when we run around
yes.
trying to spread ourselves too thin, right, trying to be everything to everybody, we end up letting ourselves and our organizations get ran by default instead of us leading them by design.
Mm. I was just about to say, you don't know me. It feels like you're speaking right to exactly what big is supposed to mean for me, that I can't be everything to all the things. I need to say no to some stuff. So I love that the plan really helps you to say no when you need to say no, to preserve space where you need to say yes. That's exciting. Let me share with you, we've got a lot of folks who either, well, we only have 17% of folks who have a plan that they feel confident about, Nick. So we've got some work to do. We've got some folks with a plan that could use some help. We've got some ideas. We've got some non-planners, and we've got folks who are just trying to survive in their day to day. So what can we do to help give some clarity and structure to like a personal strategic plan? Do you want to talk about that three-part plan?
Yes. So I think the first thing is, again, asking yourself some questions to give some structure. I saw somebody in the chat, and I'm going to keep speaking up because I'm still hearing things about volume. And we're trying to adjust some things on our end. So I appreciate you all sticking with us. But someone in the chat, Christina, two things come to mind. Christina McHale talks about, a 200-page document that sits in a binder that nobody looks at. And that's why when we're talking about having a plan, Christina, and everybody else who's thinking the same thing, I mean, we're talking more about the discipline of strategic planning. We're talking about a way to do your business in a deliberate and purposeful manner, as opposed to creating some document to say that we have a strategic plan, but that's not actually guiding any decisions of our agency. So a true
Mhm.
strategic plan should be a navigation instrument, right? So when those seas of change start getting choppy, you've got a way to always keep yourself oriented on what you and your agency find the most important. So that's what we're talking about with strategic planning. This shouldn't be a 2-page document. It should be something digestible and something that serves as a touchstone for you and your team. And we're talking about a personal plan for you. When you're deciding what priorities you should set, when you're deciding what projects you should take on, when you're deciding how you should spend your time, who you should spend your time with, you're making those decisions ahead of time by giving yourself a plan of what's important. So, first, you want to talk about purpose. Like, why do I do this work? And that's like I said, using that identity work, that professional identity, to transition to your current role. Like, why are you doing it? Because when you lose sight of that, that's when the bad decisions start happening.
Mm.
right? You're not doing this work to make your boss happy. You're not doing this work to get that accolade. Those are separate stuff. They might be nice, they might be great. Promotions are great, raises are great. But that's not why you do this work. That's not why you show up. Those are things that happen outside of your control that you can relish when they do, but they're not why you get up and show up every day. You do
Mm.
this work because you want to make a difference, because you've joined a collective mission vision, like a community supervision. We're trying to provide opportunities for successful outcomes. We're trying to break cycles of crime and violence. That's our purpose. That's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to make the prettiest strategic plan as possible. I'm trying to be part of strategic plans that make communities as strong as possible.
Yeah.
Always tying it back to that purpose. And then when you have that purpose, when you have that touchstone, then you can start asking yourself, what are your priorities? What matters most? And by what matters most, what ties most to that purpose? You
Mm.
see?
Mm-hmm.
You see, these are interdependent. You can't set priorities without a purpose. But a lot of times we try to do that. We try to jump to priorities. My word this year, Alex, is neutral. And you're like,
Tell me
man,
what that means.
that's boring. What it means is I'm not chasing the shiny new thing. I'm not digging my heels in on the way we've always done things. I'm going to stay open. I want to see things how they are. And I want to be able to make the most mission critical decisions in a given circumstance. Because that's all strategic planning reminds us. When I say it's a discipline, not a document, we're talking about when you're faced with two options, the correct choice is always the same. The one that's the most mission critical, the one that's the
Mm.
most aligned with your purpose, that's going to propel that purpose forward. So
Yeah.
those are how you set your priorities. That's how you decide what matters the most, but what's going to propel your purpose the most. And then after you set your priorities, then you can start defining your action steps. What
Mm.
are the things I'm going to do to move that purpose forward, to move those priorities towards fulfilling my purpose? And that's what we call your practices. So figure out what your purpose is, why you do this work. Start setting your priorities of what matters the most. And I'm a firm believer in less but better. A list of 25 priorities, the more you try to do, the less you're going to get done. So come up with a
Mm.
few meaningful priorities that you can go all in on. Energy is a finite resource. So everything you try to chase is less energy that goes to something else. So the more you
Yeah.
can concentrate those efforts, the more effective you're going to be. And then practice. That's when you actually start bringing it to life. This is the stuff that you're actually going to do on a daily basis to get the results that you want this year.
I love this. So there's so many things coming to mind. I want to just own that what you're telling me is every year when my resolution was to be healthy or lose weight or exercise, me running out and buying new workout clothes or filling my fridge with healthy food was not the right. I went in the wrong order. I went straight to practice and forgot about the other things. So that's a great reminder. I also appreciate you're honing in on when everything's important, nothing's important. And we do this to ourselves, both personally and professionally. And if we can't, what I've realized is that if I can't do it for myself, if I can't hone in on a few key priorities and a few key practices that I can do sustainably over time, small incremental changes, if I can't do that for myself, how can I expect my team or my organization to be able to do it as a collective? And so, really, what I'm kind of realizing as we're having this conversation is that it's really important to do our own personal strategic plans because otherwise, we're not going to be able to be successful doing it in a broader, more collective space. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right, because you're essentially going to be scaling it up and making it something we can, like I said, a group of people can coalesce around.
Yeah.
But if you haven't figured out where you stand for, then you're going to be adrift.
Mm.
But people who are leading strategic planning efforts for a team, for an organization, or who are just leading strategy in general, whether you're the one coming up with it or whether you're the one implementing it, they need to be steady.
Yeah.
They need to be locked in. But if they're still trying to figure out what their purpose is, what their personal priorities are, then they're going to be swaying in that position. They need to be locked in so that you've got the right people in the right places that can make sure that your strategies are set up for success. So that's why that personal work is so important. If if the person leading it is shaky, then the strategy's implementation is going to be shaky.
Yep. I can see all the ways that I've failed forward in my life and career. This is really interesting and useful.
Well, we all do it, and the good thing about this approach, Alex, it's not about not making the mistakes. It's about having a system in place to get you back on track.
Mm,
So when we talk about plans, talk about strategic plannings, one thing that I always cringe a little bit is when people call it a roadmap, because a roadmap implies that like there's a set course that you're going to look at and you're going to follow no matter what. That's not how this work goes, right? I think it's much more useful to think of it almost like a GPS app, like navigation app. Like think of like Waze or Apple Maps, where it's going
mm,
to, as new information comes aboard, as circumstances change. You know what I mean? You've got a road closure up ahead. You've got traffic. It's going to reroute you, but you're
mm.
always going towards that same destination. The route may change. How long it takes you to get there may change, but the destination, that's what's fixed. So that's why it's not just as simple as a roadmap. We're talking about a navigation instrument that when you make mistakes or when things happen outside of your control, you can reorient yourself to make sure that you're still driving towards that purpose.
I love this. And Amani and Rachel also do as well. I hadn't thought about it that way. I will now too cringe when people use roadmap because you're right. How many times does our navigation app tell us to turn around and go the other way? Or, you miss a turn or something happens. And what a kind of human-centered way of looking at plans and goals and all the things we want to accomplish in our lives that we're not going to get it right all the time. And we need to be able to course correct without letting it be the excuse for letting go of the whole thing altogether.
Yeah, that's right.
That makes a lot of sense. I also want to circle back to Christina's comment about the 200-page document. We're not getting into like organizational strategic plans specifically today. We're going to talk broadly about tools you can use. But if you are interested, Nick did a presentation with us back in May, I believe, where you shared how your clear, concise, simple strategic plan had some very uh, proximal data pieces to it where you were looking at staff behaviors in the day to day, and you were able to do incredible things with that plan. So, if anyone's interested, Diana, maybe you can put a link to that webinar in the Thank you. She's so good. So if you want to see more about like how do you make sure that your strategic plan isn't a 200-page document that just gets filed away, you gave some really great tips and tricks for that last time we hung out in May.
Thank you.
Um, so I'm wondering if you can help us move from connecting our kind of personal plans and our personal strategies and identity to organizational strategy. How do you do that?
So, if you'll forgive me on my overuse of metaphors, but that's just
I like them.
that's how my simple brain works. But to me, strategic planning is like conducting an orchestra, right? Every single person brings a distinct sound,
Hmm.
but but when you can align all those sounds to work together in a mission centric symphony, that's when you create harmony.
Hmm.
So when we all feel good about our professional identities, what we're bringing to the team, how we're contributing to the collective mission and vision, then you can transition that into a strategic planning effort where everybody can play their own part. Not everybody doing everything, everybody doing their own part well. And the
I've never thought about it that way.
strategic plan is how you can connect everybody. Yeah, when I recognize my professional identity, I can recognize yours better. You and me had very different words, but because I've spent on neutral versus big. But since I've spent time on what neutral means to me, I found myself being much more receptive to what big means to you. And right now, just from
Mm.
this conversation we've had today, if you and me are jumping into a project together, which we probably will the next day or two, we're gonna have a great understanding of where my head's at and where your head's at. And I'm not gonna try to get you to be neutral. You're not gonna try to get me to be big. Instead, we're gonna make that neutral and big complement each other, and
Because they do.
to make us a powerful team, achieving a common strategy.
That's a really great point because as we talked about what big means to me and what neutral means to you, there's actually a lot more common ground there
A lot more
than
than
I
we
would have
think.
thought with just the words. That's a really good point. So I love that. I actually really love your metaphors. So I think the orchestra makes a lot of sense that so often in our organizations, everyone's trying to be the conductor or everyone wants to play the drums. And we need like the whole thing, and we need everyone to play their part and do their little piece or do their big piece together in order to create that harmony. What a great example. I'm wondering, I know that you've seen it in your own organization, but I know you do a lot of work with other organizations on helping bring their strategic plans to life. What can a good, living, dynamic, not filed away strategic plan do for an organization?
The most powerful thing it can do is to permit you to make tough decisions,
Mm,
right? It makes tough decisions. We saw Rachel Melstad a few minutes ago. She's a director of field operations for the Kansas Department of Corrections. And so I've done some work with her, and we're buddies. We talk shop a lot, and I know she's constantly trying to. She said that she wanted to know what impact she can have because she's constantly having to make different decisions. Where she
mhm.
puts her efforts, where she allocates resources. But with a strategic plan in place, you can make tough decisions because they're not personal, they're purposeful.
Oof,
They're
you're
driving,
good at
yeah,
this.
they're driving towards an end. They're driving towards a mean. It's not about hurting feelings or anything like that. It's about propelling the mission and vision forward. So it's where you take it from being personal, which you've done all this strong identity work, but that's actually empowering you to be able to take a collective vision and put it right here.
Mm,
This is what we're all working towards. Not me. Rachel's working towards this, just like Nick's working towards it, Alex is working towards it. This is what we're all trying to get. And we're not all going to love every decision, but we're all going to do what we can to make sure we're propelling that mission and vision forward. And that
I,
strategic plan is where
yeah.
you set yourself up to be able to have those tough but productive conversations.
I can see it making so many things easier in that, like, when people come to you with good ideas, how does this connect with our priorities for this year? How would it strengthen our mission and our vision? And really being able to say no from a place of grounded alignment with the strategic plan versus what tends to happen, right? Is people don't always know why decisions are made the way that they are. And so we make up stories about favoritism or agendas or other things. I could see how there might be more understanding about why decisions are made the way that they are. If people understand, if the strategic plan is front and center, it's not filed away. We're talking about it at every meeting. We're taking a look at it, we're revisiting it, we're prioritizing those things on purpose. And when we do, connecting it back to that plan makes me think about something my colleague Johanna says a lot, which is, there's no shortage of good ideas. And the higher you go, the more people come to you with, we should do this and we should do that and we should do this. And what a gift to be able to say, what a great idea. Can you tell me how it connects to what we're striving for in our plan right now? And then it makes your yes or no maybe a little bit easier.
That that's right. That's right. And we did a recent conversation with our commissioner here in Georgia, Michael Nail, and you guys posted up some of his comments on a blog spot the other day. And what he always says is he tries to get his leadership team to not refer to it as the strategic plan, but our strategic plan.
Mm,
And by making that one little change in words, That's when we start making it like, no, this is something that we all have some ownership in. That doesn't mean that we
Mm-hmm.
all are going to love every decision. That doesn't mean that we all would do everything this way. But together as a team, with this strategic plan, with this mission and vision, this is what we've come up with. And you could spend more time talking about the issues, right? Like if you look at some data and see that people with mental illness aren't doing as good on probation and parole as other people, then that's what the conversations become about. What goals can we set? What priorities can we set? What actions can we take to improve service delivery in this area? Service delivery in this area. So you had asked about the power that strategic planning brings. Like in addition to making those tough decisions, it also makes you stay focused on what matters, and that's the service delivery. We're talking about delivering a service here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you bring the conversation back to what we're ultimately trying to accomplish. You have mission-centered conversations, and there's a lot less personal jockeying for position. There's a lot less feelings getting hurt when you're keeping it about, hey, together, Nick and Alex, we're talking about how to better deliver services so the people with mental illness have a better chance of success. That's
Mm-hmm.
a much less contentious conversation than I think we should organize the office this way versus I think we should sign off our emails that way.
Yeah.
Those other stuff that we can find ourselves arguing about, those power struggles, that they become less important.
I love this. And I'm even bringing it back to the personal strategic plan, right? Which is something we can do for ourselves, and how much easier it would be to understand where should I say yes, where should I say no? Where do I want to put my energy? What's most important for me to talk about with my family, friends, loved ones? How do I want to spend my time? And how much easier that could make our lives when we are clear about who we are and what we're about and what we're trying to accomplish, the impact that we want to have. That's amazing. So we're getting a shout out to Michael Nail. You'll have to tell him that. If you haven't seen our Learn at Work Live webinar with him that happened in September, man, he was such a great wealth of information. There is also a question from Mary Ann, Nick. I'm going to put up a poll really quick, but maybe you can think about her question in terms of when you're working on a strategic plan, can you do it internally? When should you bring in an outsider to help? And what are your thoughts about that? But right now, I want folks to see what they think about this last poll that we have. This is about your organization's strategic plan. So not your personal one, but which headline matches your current strategic plan at work? Are you locked in and ready? You've got ideas. I use the word roadmap. I'm cringing to myself. I'll never do it again. Um, we have a plan somewhere, don't know, haven't seen it. We're in constant reaction mode. We need a plan. Help. So lots of different answers to choose from there. As folks are getting their answers in, Nick, what do you think about Marianne's question?
So the question is developing strategic plans with internal staff versus bringing in an external consultant.
Mm-hmm.
And as a sociologist, I'm going to give the answer I give to most questions, which is it depends. So,
Well done.
yeah. So, I think if you have the infrastructure and you've devoted and invested the resources into having a staff member or a team of staff members who can look at strategy separate from operations or other administrative parts of the organization, then yeah, you can certainly do it internally. However, not everybody's set up that way.
Mm,
And if that's the case, it's really hard to separate administration or operations from strategy, which clouds decision making, which clouds clarity of conversations. So if that's the
mm.
case, then I think bringing in a temporary expert that can devote attention to it is valuable.
Great answer. So let me show you where people are at with their organizational strategic plans. I'm proud of this 24% of folks who are locked in and ready to go. And then we've
Fantastic.
got a good bunch of people who are somewhere in the mix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about plans, but not being clear yet, or not sure what the plan is, or we're firefighting all the time, which is really common for a lot of us in this field. So
Hmm.
lots of things to consider here, Nick, and I know that we're running out of time, but there's kind of three common things that tend to come up when people are asking about strategic planning. And I was hoping that maybe you could pick one of these and share your thoughts. So, one of them is I have a strategic plan, but I don't use it, right? And that's specific to Christina's comment that a lot of organizations put together fancy, really well done strategic plans and they get filed away and they're not used in the day to day. Or we don't have a plan, but do we really need one? Because like we're doing okay, everything's fine. Or we have one, but it's not doing much for us. So like we're in some sort of in between. Is there one of these questions that you hear most often that you could maybe share some insights on? And for everyone on here, we'll get Nick to share his answers to all of these and we'll make a blog and send it out to you all so that you have that.
So for the sake of time, I'll say, what if I have a plan and I don't use it, or we have one but it isn't doing much for us? I'll kind of group those together for the sake of time,
Okay.
and that's one and three there. And that's the sense of like, it's the it's the equivalent of like, if you know how to read but you don't read, you're no different than someone who doesn't know how to read.
Hmm.
You get what I'm saying? Like that's the same. You're functionally illiterate if you know how to read and you choose not to read. And I say
Hmm.
that all the time because I feel like reading is a superpower. Like the more you can read, the more you feed your mind, the better you can perform. That's just me personally. But like it's the same thing. And when you're talking about strategic planning, we're talking about treating it as a discipline. So yeah, you might have a beautiful document, but if you're not using it, it's the same as not having one, or it's not
Hmm.
doing much for us. But number two, that we don't have a strategic plan. Do we really need one? I would say unequivocally yes, because
Shocking from the strategic planning guy.
yeah, planning creates structure, and it's not just the plan itself; it's the act of planning, the meaningful conversations that occur by spending some time to stop and do some heavyweight thinking about what's
Mm,
important instead of just running around reacting, making knee jerk decisions based on short term fluctuations, but actually stopping, taking the time, pausing, thinking about what's really going on here. What's the root of this problem? And can we do anything to change the address the problem? And if we
mm,
can, what are those steps? Or is this something we just complain about over a lunch break and then we get back to the real work? But
yeah.
if you don't stop and have those decisions, then you're just reacting. You're not strategizing. So having a plan, most importantly, brings the planning process into your life. And that strategic planning process is where you can make some real productive headway in improving the overall performance of your agency, getting your teams, getting your divisions to their maximum level of contribution.
Hmm.
We're not going for mediocrity here. We're going for success. We're driving towards success. We're driving towards excellence. And without that planning process, we're just trying to stay afloat. With that planning process, we can start making decisions. We can start building the skills. We can start reallocating resources so that we can do beautiful swan drives. We're not just trying to tread water. We're trying to make a masterpiece. So
Yeah.
it builds resilience and it gives you all a shared direction, which also squashes a lot of disagreements where people, not everybody's going to be aligned, and that's okay. That's okay. In probation and parole, we talk about the law enforcement social worker continuum.
Mm,
And the
hmm.
best agencies are agencies that have officers all along that continuum. We're not striving for one spot. As a team, we want a balance, a blend.
Yeah.
So a strategic plan with a collective vision, it gives us some common ground. We can disagree on all this other stuff, but we're all driving towards the same vision. And then if you're obstructing that vision, now we have a not personal but purposeful problem, and we can address it accordingly. You know what I mean? As
Yeah.
opposed to making it uh, personal. So
The
that's
takeaways I'm hearing are like, it's a discipline, right? That you're connected to it, you're committed to it. There's ownership of it around this thing. We don't have to agree on everything else, but like, here's where we might disagree, but we're committing and we're going to do some stuff. And we're going to be purposeful in it, meaning it's not going in a file cabinet. It's going to be in our meetings, on our lips, in our minds, in everything we do. We're focusing on those things that we said are most important and
That's
making it
right.
a priority. I love it. So, we are quickly running out of time. I appreciate all the folks who are sharing questions and stuff. We're going to try to capture all of those and get you some answers. So if you have more questions that you haven't shared, please don't hesitate to share them. I do want to remind you if you want to do strategic planning internally, but maybe you've never done it before, or you could use some tools and some structure, a way to connect implementation and data to your plans. Nick is the pro, I gotta say. And so he's going to be running a strategic planning intensive. It's a 4-week class. You can join him. We'll put the link in the chat if you want to check it out. We also have Learn at Work Live series happening all year long. All sorts of fun and interesting folks are going to join us. Our next one is in March, where we're talking to Director Beth Skinner, the Executive Director of Iowa DOC, about how shifting culture can reduce recidivism and what they've been able to do in Iowa. You can sign up for one session or all of them through the year. And then remember, if you register for stuff, we'll send it to you, even if you can't make it. So you'll always have that. Um, I hope that today you are thinking about how to ground yourself in who you are and creating some clarity as the foundation of both what's going to happen for you in 2026 personally and how you can engage in meaningful leadership and strategic planning in your organization so that you're not looking back 10 years from now going, how come we're still talking about the same things that we were talking about 5 or 10 years ago? And so, with that, I just love to know, Nick, do you have any closing thoughts, maybe another metaphor for us that we can end our time together on?
My only, I guess it's a little bit repetitive, but yeah, my only thing is when we're talking about a plan for yourself and then for transitioning into strategic planning, like I said, it's just taking the time to make it deliberate so that you're getting the most out of the time you have. Because like I said, it's either these decisions are the change is going to happen,
Hmm.
like the ball's going to drop, and you can choose to either do it by default or lead by design.
Mm, I want to lead my life by design. I love that. And default's a thing. So I love this. Thank you so much for being here. You all know me. I want to hear from you. So stay connected. Email me. Let me know what you thought about today. Let's keep asking questions. Connect with us on social media. We want to hear from you. And let us know what other kinds of things you want to learn about in our Learn and Work lives. We love doing these with you. And so we will see you next time, everyone. Happy New Year. Think of those words and be sure to share them with us. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to just check and see if there's any like last minute little questions in here that you can. Oh, Nick, people are really thankful for you. Your metaphors are a total win. Oh, Rachel wants to know how you're so awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Take care. We'll see you next time.